let me, okay. All right. We're going to start with name and period at the top because I will be collecting this and giving you some feedback until craftsmanship does count. So name and period. All right, then you can totally copy all of these mark making techniques. So this is here more for like value reference, but if you don't want to, or later on, you don't want to use these, because ideally you're practicing mark making that you want to use on the face practice, perhaps on your next practice, or on your final draft. So there's only a couple of things that have to go from the top portion to the bottom portion. If you're trying to find other examples of mark making, we're going to annotate at the top. You would Google. One Google that would give you a lot of results is pen and ink techniques or mark making in ink. And then you should find, or just mark making in general, you probably could get some. Your other option, and so when you guys do this one, so let's say like you have a hand in your symbols and you're going to draw a hand and the symbol. This one for mark making in ink, you could be more specific, like mark making on hand, mark making on bird, mark making on tree, and you could get some kind of interesting results. Or if you don't want to Google at all, in your reference folder, your line and pattern packet, so these pages came directly out of a pen and ink book for mark making. And so one of these, or a couple of them, might work for you. And then you get into more like pattern types. So internet or folder for reference, or copy what's on this paper. All right, we're gonna start out with this center part. And I would use the black Sharpie pen. Well, we're gonna actually trade. So let's start out with like the most basic way to control is through your pressure. So you're gonna try to hold in the middle, or I'm gonna try to hold at the end. And I'm gonna go as light as humanly possible with pressure. And you wanna be fairly fast, because remember, your the time it takes you to apply, the more it soaks into the paper, so the darker that line would appear. All right, then I'm going to go like normal pressure, normal speed. So notice it gets a little bit darker. Then I'm going to switch to ultra fine Sharpie, regular Sharpie. So you can see the difference between the two types of Sharpie. All right. So over on the left-hand side, there's 6 of them that are labeled. So you're going to use those 6 techniques because they're like the most basic, well-known pen and ink techniques. So that first one says short hatches. I'm going to use just ultra fine. I'm going to try to save this for like the practices. Hopefully we only need these 2 for your whole entire unit. We don't have extra for you to lose them, but we have extra like when you get to your final draft if they start running out. All right, so the one thing we're going to do differently than these boxes up here is you guys are going to try to fade out your value, because in your value maps, some of them, like it's not just one value in that whole little area, it might have to fade. So if I'm doing short little hatches, then I'm going to practice lightening my pressure, but also adding more or less. Okay, same thing with hatching. So I'm going to try kind of flicking away to get like a thinner line and adding more or shorter ones to build up layers. Then it says cross hatching, so you're going to follow. So I would do less hatching in one direction. So for cross hatching, I would say you probably need at least 3 directions. And then if you don't want to try curved, mark making in the bottom 6, that's totally fine. You're going to put them on the shape/forms when you get there. All right, then stippling, you guys obviously know, lots of dots to little dots. What do we have? Wavy lines. So similar to hatching. Remember, the closer together, the darker it will appear. The more spread apart, the lighter it will appear. So you can practice getting range of value. And then scribbles or scumbling, controlled scribbling. So bigger to smaller might be another way, especially if you're going to use some kind of shape as your mark making. All right, so you guys are going to try to fade out in those boxes. You're going to come up with 6 other ones that you want to practice. Then you're going to use the top portion as a reference for value, and you're going to add mark making to the shapes and turn them into forms. So for some of you that struggle on putting the 5 parts of light on there, or like where to put your value, we're going to do some annotating real fast. So you do need to have all 5 parts of light. Especially for the square little images. So you definitely need your highlight, where it's just the white paper showing through, or on your practices for the face, it might be areas where it's just watercolor showing, or there's no mark making there. Okay. Then we have what helps to create the form of the image, the darkest part on the object, your core shadow. The darkest part, which on the left-hand side fades to your midtones. And then in the shadowy side, we have some reflected light, which on our practice girl, she has a lot of reflected light. And then on the ground, we have the cast shadow. So you want to take notice of that when you're doing those 3 boxes. And if it's helpful to you with pencil, I'm just going to do the cone one. I'll start it and then like you guys get it. So with the shapes, you might give yourself a value map of where your values kind of start fading out. And then I'd also include the cast shadow, because it's something you guys often forget to include. So then you have a rough map of where to apply that mark making technique. So let's say I'm going to do like short curved hatch lines because I want that to look rounded. So I would usually give myself little guidelines, especially if it's going to be curved, to follow. It's easy to like for your hand to like want to line things up and make little tally marks. And so I would add into my core shadow, and then I'm going to start trying to fade out. And I come back and do a little bit of layering and then try to fade out. Otherwise you're going to get like an outline of your value mapping or of your parts of light. And we want it to kind of transition or fade. And once you guys get it, you get it. So I would practice, I mean, you could do like this one. It has one type on the surface, another type in the cast shadow, another type in the background, a different type for each side. That way you're really kind of practicing what you want to use on your practice starting tomorrow, ideally, is where we should be. So if you do finish this in class, you can turn it into the bin. If not, I'll be collecting it tomorrow so I can give you some feedback. Probably mostly about direction for curved items, I would assume, or craftsmanship, or hey, you should do some Googling. Like, it doesn't look like you like these because it looks not fabulous. So just pay attention to 5 parts of light. All right, good luck.